Mortal Kombat is a 2021 American film directed by Simon McQuoid and stars Louis Tan, Jessica McNamee, Joe Taslim, and Hiroyuki Sanada. I've been doing those Japanese names way too much lately, but I'm pretty good at it, I think. It is based on the video game series that has been going strong since 1992. And look, this isn't a gaming channel. I know that. I'm not even really a gamer these days. I certainly wouldn't consider myself that. But man, back in 1992, I totally was, I loved video games back then, and I loved movies, and I was always looking for things that pushed boundaries. And when I first saw Mortal Kombat, I was completely blown away, as was everybody, from what I remember. And I mean, I can still remember those days pretty vividly, at least in at least going to arcades and stuff like that. My memory's not always the greatest, but man, yeah, those early '90s video game days, arcades, NES, Super NES, Sega Genesis. Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. And going back to Mortal Kombat, when I first saw it, the blood, the gore, the extreme violence, no game had ever been like this before, and we were all instant fucking fans, man. I'd even probably count it as one of my early horror influences, especially since I was 10 back in 92. 1995 came and gave us the first ever Mortal Kombat movie, which wasn't very good, but to us at the time, it was pretty awesome. And what's funny is that the game had only been out for 3 years at that point, but we felt like it had been around forever already by 95. And in 1997, we got a second Mortal Kombat film called Annihilation, which was a step down and holds up pretty poorly, and was pretty much the reason why we never got a follow-up to it. We did get some pretty cool animated movies, but fans always wanted a proper Mortal Kombat film. I mean, I know I did. So I guess the question is this the follow-up that we wanted? I mean, first off, this is rated R, which is already looking good, seeing how, like I said, the previous two, 90s movies were fucking PG-13, which is absolutely ridiculous. Makes no sense. And the storyline here, pretty much the same as it always was. A group of champions are selected to defend the Earth Realm against the Outworld Realm, and if they lose, the Earth Realm will be conquered, and it's fucking over for mankind. It's how the game was written, 30 years ago, and it has remained that way to this day. You also have the side story of Sub-Zero swearing to end the bloodline of Scorpion, because that has always been kind of the main Mortal Kombat rivalry. Basically, those two guys are the Ken and Ryu of this franchise. Blatantly. And you get a fight scene between them within the first 5 minutes, man. No time wasted. This kind of sets the tone, here. Lots of action and decent pacing, I would say, though I could do without all the CGI blood. You also meet, 3 characters within the first 12 minutes. Because let's be honest, the series has a ton of characters, and I won't spoil anything, or I'll try not to, but this movie does mostly focus on, most of the earlier characters of the series, if that makes any sense. And like with any movie that has, the task of introducing a large number of characters, it's a bit of a struggle, and it is definitely assumed that you are already pretty much a fan of these games and you already know who everyone is. To be fair, though, if you watched this, you probably did. so yeah, don't expect a lot of backstory here. But it's already an almost 2-hour runtime, so I think they packed as much into it as they could, maybe without putting too much. You really can't win entirely. It's a tough thing to do. I do think that we were introduced to enough characters because, I imagine the plan was to introduce, more in sequels, kind of more and more as you go, which we are reportedly getting a sequel in October of this year. Since this movie was fairly successful. It made a decent amount of money. And let's all think about the fact that it's impossible to please all of the diehard fans. It's kind of a lose-lose situation. I personally think that should have focused more on just the characters from the first movie, but I mean, that probably wouldn't even work. My pick for the next movie, though, character-wise, is Baraka. Please give us some Baraka. I need to see that. The next thing I'll address is how did I feel, about the portrayal of the characters, which, let's be honest, is one of the most important factors in a movie like this. In my opinion, everyone was handled pretty well. You know, they all look and act the part, and I only really have minor complaints. Like Kano didn't have his metal faceplate thing. Again, minor complaint, and I wish Goro wasn't so CGI heavy since he's probably my favorite character. That said, he was actually portrayed by a stop motion puppet, but I wish he would have been done practically. A small handful of the actors here are actual martial artists as well, so I really appreciate that since it does lead to some cool fight choreography. And before I forget, I need to mention one of the more, I guess you could call it controversial elements, which is the character made exclusively for the movie. And that is Cole Young, played by Louis Tan. To be honest, I totally expected to hate him, but he's really not that bad. Cole plays a washed up MMA fighter, which at first I didn't like, but after thinking about it, I think his angle really works. First off, he is literally the descendant of warriors. So someone like that choosing to fight in MMA totally makes sense to me. He's like a modern day gladiator. And the first time you see him, he literally loses a fight. And I thought that was clever. He's flawed. He's not like some untouchable hero. That said, I really have no idea why he was included. His story arc makes total sense, and he's not, a bad character at all, like I said. But we are playing with a franchise with probably like 100 characters to choose from. And I would have left out Cole Young personally, but it's a pretty small complaint. And another very minor complaint is that I would have preferred less storyline and more tournament fighting. But I do have a feeling the sequel will do that, but we'll see. Now, I've saved the best for last, which is the violence and gore, that we all want from a Mortal Kombat movie. Like I said, the first two, had the PG-13 rating, which is insulting on every level, but this is fucking rated R. Finally, It's a fairly violent movie. There's some decent gore here, I'm happy to say. We even get some of the legendary fatality moves from the games. There aren't a ton, I think. There aren't a ton, but there are a few, and when they happen, the gore is pretty good, as it has to be. So I'm giving Mortal Kombat 2021 a 6 out of 10. I gotta say, I really wasn't in the mood to watch this, but I put it on, I was into it within the first 5 minutes, and I had a pretty good time. My final complaint is that it feels a bit too much like a Marvel movie, and I get it. I think they should maybe try to shake that off a little bit. I would like something a little bit darker, but again, I had fun with it, and I'm totally interested in seeing where the sequel goes. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex.